Commander Jake Harrison stood in the communication chamber of Luna Station, watching the massive holographic display that showed the faces of 12 alien species. These beings had traveled from across the galaxy to deliver one message to humanity. The chamber was silent except for the soft hum of life support systems and the quiet breathing of the human delegation behind him. The Zephyrian ambassador spoke first. Her crystalline features caught the light as she moved, creating rainbow patterns across her translucent skin. Her voice was melodic but carried the weight of absolute authority. "The Galactic Council has reached a unanimous decision regarding the human species," she announced. "After careful consideration of your actions over the past 50 years, we have concluded that humanity poses an unacceptable risk to galactic civilization." Dr. Lisa Morgan stepped forward from her position with the scientific advisory team. She had spent 15 years working alongside alien researchers, contributing to medical breakthroughs that had saved millions of lives across dozens of worlds. Her hands trembled slightly as she activated her personal communicator. "Ambassador, with respect, humanity has been a productive member of the galactic community. Our research has led to cures for 17 different alien diseases. We have established peaceful colonies and maintained positive relations with over 30 species." The Corvan delegate raised one of his forearms to silence her. His species resembled massive insects with compound eyes that reflected the chamber's lighting like mirrors. When he spoke, his voice buzzed with mechanical precision. "Dr. Morgan, your species' contributions to science are acknowledged. However, your military expansion and aggressive colonization patterns demonstrate a fundamental incompatibility with peaceful coexistence." Jake felt his jaw tighten. The so-called aggressive expansion consisted of establishing research stations and agricultural colonies in empty star systems. Humanity had never attacked another species or claimed inhabited worlds. Their only crime was being too successful at adapting to different environments and growing their population faster than the established galactic powers found comfortable. President Helen Carter's image appeared on a secondary screen. She was speaking from Earth, her voice carrying clearly across the quantum communication link. "The human government has always operated within established galactic law. We have filed proper colonization requests and followed all environmental protocols. Our military ships exist solely for defense of our civilian populations." The Altarian representative, a being that looked like a tall, thin humanoid covered in blue scales, leaned forward in his chair. "President Carter, your species has established colonies in 47 star systems in less than 5 decades. No other species in galactic history has expanded so rapidly. Your population growth rate exceeds sustainability models. We expand because we need room for our people," Helen replied. "Every world we settle is uninhabited. We transform dead rocks into living ecosystems. How is this a threat to anyone?" The Zephyrian ambassador's expression remained unchanged, but her voice carried a note of finality. "The decision has been made. All human settlements beyond the Sol system must be evacuated within 1 standard galactic year. Quantum barriers will be established around your home system to prevent further expansion." Jake watched as the other human delegates began to protest simultaneously. Admiral Ben Parker, who had been quietly observing from the back of the room, stepped forward. His uniform bore the insignia of the Earth Defense Fleet, and his weathered face showed decades of military service. "You're talking about abandoning millions of people, families who have lived on these worlds for generations, children who were born among the stars and have never seen Earth. The evacuation will be orderly," the Corvan delegate buzzed. "Transport vessels will be provided for those who cannot afford passage home. Personal belongings and essential equipment may be taken." Dr. Lisa Morgan's voice cracked with emotion. "What about our research stations? The xenobiology labs on Kepler 442b contain samples from over 200 species. The agricultural experiments on New Eden could solve food shortages for half the galaxy. All research materials will be transferred to appropriate galactic institutions." The Altarian replied coldly. "Your species' contributions will be preserved, but your direct participation in galactic affairs must end." The holographic display flickered as Captain Ryan Brooks joined the transmission from the Earth Defense ship Horizon. His ship was currently orbiting New Geneva, one of humanity's most successful agricultural colonies. "I'm looking down at cities that house 3 million people. Farms that feed twice that number across 6-star systems. You're asking us to simply walk away from decades of work. You have 1 year, the Zephyrian ambassador stated. The barriers will activate regardless of your compliance. Any humans remaining beyond the Sol system after that time will be unable to return home. Jake Harrison had served in the Earth Defense Fleet for 23 years. He had fought pirates, rescued stranded colonists, and helped establish peaceful first contact with 16 different alien species. He had never felt as helpless as he did at this moment. What did we do wrong? He asked quietly. Tell me what crime we committed that deserves this punishment. The chamber fell silent. The alien faces on the display showed no emotion, no sympathy for the human delegation's anguish. Finally, the Corvan delegate spoke. Your species' crime is existing as you are. You reproduce too quickly, adapt too easily, and expand too aggressively. You represent a potential threat to the established order of galactic civilization. We have never threatened anyone, Admiral Parker said, his voice rising. Every conflict we've been involved in was defensive. We've never started a war. Your very success is the threat, the Altarian representative explained. In 50 years, you have achieved what most species take 5 centuries to accomplish. Your growth rate suggests that within 200 years, humans would outnumber the rest of galactic civilization combined. Dr. Morgan shook her head in disbelief. So you're punishing us for being successful? For building good lives for our people? The Zephyrian ambassador's image began to fade as the transmission prepared to end. The decision is final. Evacuation begins immediately. The quantum barriers will activate in exactly 1 galactic standard year. Do not attempt to circumvent them. Do not try to maintain contact with galactic civilization. You are hereby banished from civilized space. The holographic display went dark, leaving the human delegation standing in the sudden silence of the communication chamber. Jake looked around at his colleagues, seeing his own shock and anger reflected in their faces. 23 years of service, of building bridges between species, of working toward a better galaxy for everyone. And it had all led to this moment. President Carter's image remained active on the secondary screen. Her expression was grim but determined. Begin immediate evacuation protocols for all colonies beyond Sol. Contact every ship, every station, every settlement. We have 1 year to bring our people home. Jake activated his communicator and began issuing orders to the Earth Defense Fleet. As he spoke, he watched through the chamber's viewport as the first evacuation ships began launching from Luna's surface. Humanity's dream of joining galactic civilization was over, but Jake Harrison had a feeling this was not the end of humanity's story among the stars. Admiral Ben Parker watched through the observation deck of Station Alpha as the last transport ship from the Kepler colonies docked with the massive space station. The vessel was packed beyond safe capacity, with refugees carrying whatever belongings they could manage. He had overseen the evacuation of 47 human settlements in 11 months, and each arriving ship brought the same story of heartbreak and loss. The quantum barriers had activated 3 weeks ago, cutting off all contact with the galactic network. Humanity was now truly alone in their corner of space, surrounded by invisible walls that prevented any ship from leaving their prison. The aliens had been efficient in their exile, Ben had to admit. They had even provided transport vessels for the poorest colonists, though those ships had been stripped of all advanced technology before being turned over to human crews. Engineer Kate Sullivan met Ben in the station's main corridor, her face showing the exhaustion that had become common among everyone involved in the massive relocation effort. We've got another problem with life support in sections 12 through 15, she reported. The scrubbers weren't designed to handle this many people. I can jury-rig additional units, but we need more raw materials. Ben nodded grimly. Station Alpha had been built to house 50,000 people comfortably. They now had nearly 200,000 refugees crammed into every available space. Similar overcrowding plagued every human settlement within the Sol system. What do you need? Atmospheric processors, mainly. Some of the newer evacuees brought portable units from their colonies. If we can integrate those into our main system, we might be able to maintain breathable air for everyone. Kate pulled out a data pad showing station schematics covered in red warning indicators. The alternative is starting to turn people away, and we both know that's not an option. On the agricultural world of New Kansas, Governor Sam Mitchell stood in what had once been his office and was now a refugee processing center. Lines of displaced colonists stretched around the building, each family carrying registration forms that would assign them temporary housing in the ever-expanding camps outside the colony's main city. The planet's population had tripled in 10 months, and food production was struggling to keep pace. Director Amy Chen arrived with her daily report on agricultural expansion. Her team had been working around the clock to establish new farming complexes, but the mathematics were unforgiving. "We've opened 14 new growing areas this month," she told Sam. "The automated systems are running at maximum efficiency, but we're still producing about 30% less food than our current population needs." Sam looked out the window at the tent cities that now surrounded every permanent structure on New Kansas. Children who had been born on distant worlds played in the dust between temporary shelters, their parents trying to maintain some sense of normalcy in an impossible situation. "What about the other agricultural worlds? New Eden is in worse shape than we are. They're operating at 40% capacity. New Terra has better numbers, but they're also dealing with equipment failures from overuse." Amy's voice carried the weight of impossible responsibility. "We need more time to expand, or we need fewer people to feed." Neither option was acceptable. Sam had already received reports that some refugee families were talking about taking their own ships and trying to find empty worlds beyond the barriers. The quantum walls prevented faster-than-light travel, but desperate people were willing to attempt generation ship journeys to anywhere that might offer hope. Dr. Alex Turner had found his hope in an abandoned research station orbiting Jupiter. The facility had been conducting deep space communications research before the evacuation, and Alex realized that the quantum barriers surrounding human space created a unique laboratory environment. The exotic energy patterns generated by the alien technology were unlike anything human science had ever encountered. His small team of volunteer researchers worked in cramped conditions, sharing living space that had been designed for a crew half their size. But their discomfort was forgotten when they began to understand what they were seeing. The barriers didn't just block human ships from leaving. They were generating massive amounts of exotic matter and energy that could revolutionize human technology. "Look at these readings," Alex told his colleague Dr. Rachel Moore as she joined him at the main sensor array. "The quantum field fluctuations are creating pockets of space-time distortion. If we can figure out how to harness this energy, we might be able to develop propulsion systems that don't rely on galactic hyperspace networks." Rachel studied the data streaming across their screens. She had been one of the lead xenobiologists working with alien research teams before the evacuation, and her expertise in alien technology was proving invaluable in understanding their prison walls. The energy patterns suggest the barriers are self-maintaining. They're drawing power from quantum vacuum fluctuations. That's technology at least 1,000 years ahead of our current capabilities. But Alex saw opportunity where others saw only advanced alien science. "We don't need to understand how they built it. We just need to understand how it works. If we can analyze the energy patterns and field harmonics, we might be able to create our own version." Captain Nicole Davis commanded one of the few human ships still conducting deep space missions within the quarantine zone. Her vessel, the exploration ship Wanderer, had been tasked with mapping every system that humanity could still reach. The work was dangerous, as they were pushing into regions of space that had never been surveyed, but it was also necessary for humanity's long-term survival. During one survey mission to a red dwarf system near the outer edge of their accessible space, Nicole's team made a discovery that changed everything. The third planet in the system showed clear signs of ancient construction. Massive structures jutted from the planet's surface, their geometric patterns unlike anything built by known galactic species. "Captain, we're picking up artificial materials," reported her science officer, Lieutenant Tony Martinez. "The composition doesn't match any known galactic civilization. These structures are old, maybe thousands of years." Nicole authorized a landing party to investigate the ruins. What they found in the underground chambers were records left by another species that had been exiled by the Galactic Council centuries earlier. The inscriptions, carved into metal walls that had survived millennia, told a story of another race deemed too dangerous for galactic society. Director Paul Thompson received Nicole's report at his new headquarters on Titan. He had been appointed to lead the Human Colonial Authority, the emergency government established to coordinate humanity's survival efforts. The implications of the discovery were staggering. Humanity was not the first species to be banished by the Galactic Council. Paul called an emergency meeting of the colonial leadership. Admiral Parker attended via quantum link from Station Alpha, while Governor Mitchell and Director Chen joined from New Kansas. Dr. Turner participated from his research station, his excitement about the archaeological discovery matching his enthusiasm for his energy research. If the Council has done this before, then we need to assume they'll do it again, Paul told the group. We also need to assume that our exile might be permanent. The previous species never made it back to galactic society. Their records end abruptly about 200 years after their banishment. The meeting lasted 6 hours as they discussed the implications of their isolation and began planning for a future that might never include rejoining galactic civilization. But as Paul looked at the faces of his colleagues, he saw something that gave him hope. Despite the overcrowding, the food shortages, and the complete upheaval of their civilization, humanity was not giving up. They were adapting, learning, and preparing for whatever came next. General Claire Adams stood in the massive construction bay orbiting Saturn, watching as the final hull plates were welded onto humanity's first truly independent warship. The vessel stretched nearly 2 kilometers from bow to stern, its dark hull incorporating technology that had been impossible just 20 years earlier. The ship bore no resemblance to the vessels that had evacuated human colonies decades ago. This was something entirely new, built from stolen alien secrets and human determination. The construction project had taken 15 years of careful planning and development. Every component had been manufactured in secret facilities scattered throughout the outer system, far from any location the aliens might monitor. The propulsion system alone represented a breakthrough that would have seemed like magic to the humans who had first been banished from galactic society. Dr. Rachel Moore joined Claire at the observation window, carrying a data tablet filled with the latest test results from her biological research division. Rachel had spent the past decade analyzing genetic samples left behind by various alien species during the hasty evacuation. Her work had yielded insights into alien psychology and physiology that no human had ever possessed. The neural pattern analysis is complete, Rachel reported. We now understand how 17 different alien species process fear, aggression, and decision-making. The Zephyrians in particular have a fascinating weakness in their cognitive architecture. They become effectively paralyzed when faced with rapid tactical changes during combat situations. Claire smiled grimly as she reviewed the data. Knowledge was power, and humanity had been gathering both for 2 decades. What about the Corvins? Their insectoid neural structure makes them excellent at following established patterns, but terrible at adapting to unexpected situations. If we can disrupt their command hierarchy, individual units become confused and ineffective. Rachel scrolled through additional files on her tablet. The most interesting discovery is that most galactic species have never fought an opponent that uses deception or misdirection as primary tactical elements. Their entire military doctrine is based on direct confrontation. The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Captain Steve Wilson, who had just returned from another reconnaissance mission beyond the quantum barriers. His ship, the Shadow, was the first human vessel capable of penetrating the alien containment field without being detected. The technology that made this possible had been developed by Dr. Alex Turner's team using principles reverse-engineered from the barriers themselves. The Proxima sector is still lightly defended, Steve reported as he joined the 2 women at the observation window. 3 monitoring stations and a small patrol fleet. The aliens seem confident that their barriers are impenetrable. He pulled out his own data device, showing tactical maps of nearby star systems. More importantly, I've confirmed that our old colonies are mostly abandoned. The aliens didn't bother to maintain the infrastructure we left behind. Claire nodded. The reconnaissance missions had been essential for planning humanity's eventual return to galactic space. Each scouting trip revealed more evidence that the Galactic Council had grown complacent during humanity's absence. They had assumed that the quantum barriers would contain the human problem permanently, allowing them to return to their comfortable, established order. President Maria Rodriguez had been elected to lead the human colonial republic 5 years earlier, running on a platform of reclaiming humanity's rightful place in the galaxy. She had authorized the massive military buildup program known as the New Horizon Initiative, though few people outside the inner circle of government knew the true scope of their preparations. Maria understood that when humanity finally revealed itself to galactic society again, they would need to be strong enough to defend their independence permanently. The shipyard around Saturn was only one of 12 similar facilities scattered throughout human space. Each yard was producing vessels that incorporated the best of human engineering with technology, adapted from alien systems. The ships were faster, more maneuverable, and better armed than anything currently serving in galactic fleets. More importantly, they were designed to operate independently of the hyperspace network that connected galactic civilization. Agent Tony Martinez had spent the past 8 years developing the counterintelligence systems that kept these projects hidden from alien observation. His work involved creating false energy signatures and communication patterns that made human industrial activity appear much smaller and less sophisticated than it actually was. The aliens monitoring human space saw civilization slowly declining in isolation. Exactly what they expected and wanted to see. The deception had been remarkably successful. Intercepted alien communications indicated that the Galactic Council believed humanity would eventually fade away or revert to pre-technological civilization. Some alien analysts had even suggested that the quantum barriers could be safely removed within another generation, as the humans would no longer possess the capability to threaten galactic stability. Kevin Wright had made the discovery that changed everything during a routine salvage operation in the asteroid belt. His team had been breaking down abandoned mining equipment when they found a derelict alien vessel that had somehow been overlooked during the evacuation. The ship was a Corvin intelligence gathering platform, and its databanks contained detailed information about current galactic politics and military capabilities. The intelligence treasure trove revealed that galactic civilization was not the stable, unified society that humanity had once believed it to be. 3 major alien powers were engaged in an ongoing Cold War that occasionally erupted into border skirmishes. Several species had withdrawn from active participation in galactic affairs, effectively isolating themselves on their homeworlds. Most shocking of all, 2 entire alien civilizations had apparently gone extinct in the decades since humanity's banishment, though the exact causes were classified at the highest levels of galactic government. Dr. Turner's research team had made their own breakthrough during this same period. They had successfully created a small-scale version of the quantum field generators that powered the alien barriers. The human version was crude and inefficient compared to the original technology, but it proved that humanity could now manipulate space-time in ways that had previously been impossible. The practical applications were staggering. Human ships could now travel faster than light without using the galactic hyperspace network. They could generate defensive fields that were nearly impervious to conventional weapons. Most importantly, they could create localized communication networks that were undetectable by alien monitoring systems. General Adams walked through the completed warship's corridors, inspecting the systems that would soon carry humanity back to the stars. The vessel's crew quarters were designed to accommodate both humans and potential alien allies. The weapon systems could be configured for either defensive or offensive operations. The ship's computer contained detailed files on every known alien species, their strengths, weaknesses, and preferred tactics. As Claire reached the bridge of the new warship, she found President Rodriguez waiting for her. Maria had come to personally authorize the final phase of humanity's preparation for their return to galactic society. The time for hiding and building in secret was nearly over. "How soon can we be ready for the first operation?" Maria asked as she reviewed the ship's specifications on the main display screen. 6 months for final testing and crew training, Claire replied. The first target should be something that makes a statement but doesn't trigger an immediate full-scale war. We want the aliens to understand that humanity has returned, but we also want them to underestimate our true capabilities until it's too late. Maria smiled as she looked out at the stars that had been forbidden to humanity for so long. Then we'll start with reclaiming our colonies. Let the galaxy know that the humans they banished and forgot have become something they never expected. Fleet Admiral Laura Peterson stood on the bridge of the battleship Defiance as her massive fleet emerged from the quantum barriers for the first time in 63 years. Behind her stretched a formation of 200 human warships, each one incorporating technology that the Galactic Council had never imagined possible. The moment of humanity's return to galactic civilization had finally arrived. The first target was the Proxima Centauri system, where humanity had once operated a thriving research colony before the Great Exile. Long-range sensors showed a small Zephyrian monitoring station orbiting the fourth planet, exactly where Captain Wilson's reconnaissance missions had predicted it would be. The alien facility had been watching the empty system for decades, recording data that proved humanity remained safely contained behind their quantum prison. Captain Greg Miller received the attack order aboard his destroyer Vengeance. His ship was one of the newer designs, built specifically for rapid strikes against alien installations. The vessel's stealth systems rendered it nearly invisible to conventional sensors, while its weapons could punch through alien defensive shields like they were made of paper. Greg had volunteered for this mission because he had been born on Proxima 4 and wanted the honor of reclaiming his homeworld. The attack lasted less than 10 minutes. The Zephyrian monitoring station detected the approaching human ship only seconds before Greg's weapons disabled its communication array and defense systems. The alien crew surrendered immediately, their crystalline features showing the confusion and terror that Dr. Moore had predicted they would experience when faced with rapid tactical changes. For the first time in over 6 decades, humans had captured an alien facility and taken alien prisoners. Admiral Peterson ordered the captured station to be secured and searched for intelligence while her fleet moved deeper into the system. What they found exceeded their expectations. The Zephyrian records contained detailed reports on the current state of galactic civilization, including military deployments, political tensions, and economic problems that had developed during humanity's absence. The aliens had been so confident in their quantum barriers that they had stored highly classified information in what they believed was a completely secure location. The news of the Proxima raid spread through galactic communication networks within hours. The Corvan Empire responded first, dispatching Admiral Thiss with a task force of 30 warships to investigate what their analysts insisted must be some kind of mistake. The Corvans refused to believe that humans could have developed technology capable of penetrating the quantum barriers, let alone advanced enough to threaten established galactic military forces. Commander Susan Kelly waited for the Corvan fleet aboard her battleship Liberty, positioned near the Wolf 359 system, where humanity had once operated mining facilities. Susan had studied the captured alien tactical manuals and knew exactly how Admiral Thiss would approach what he believed was a minor police action against primitive human raiders. The Corvan commander would advance in standard formation with his heaviest ships leading the assault, expecting to overwhelm any human resistance through superior firepower. The Battle of Wolf 359 lasted 6 hours and changed galactic military doctrine forever. Susan's ships used hit-and-run tactics that the Corvans had never encountered, appearing from multiple directions simultaneously before vanishing back into space-time distortions created by their quantum field generators. The alien warships found themselves fighting an enemy that refused to engage in the direct confrontations that formed the basis of all galactic military training. Admiral Thiss lost 18 ships before ordering a retreat, his remaining vessels too damaged to continue fighting. The Corvan survivors carried reports of human weapons that could punch through their strongest defensive shields, and human ships that could apparently teleport across vast distances during combat. The defeat of a major galactic fleet by the supposedly extinct human military sent shockwaves throughout civilized space. President Daniel Foster addressed the Galactic Council from the reclaimed colony of New Geneva. His image transmitted across quantum communication networks that the aliens had believed were secure from human access. Daniel had been chosen to lead the human colonial republic specifically because of his diplomatic experience and his reputation for reasonable negotiation. What the aliens heard from him was not what they expected from a desperate refugee leader. The human species returns to galactic civilization not as supplicants seeking readmission, but as a sovereign power demanding recognition of our rights and territories, Daniel announced. We call upon the Galactic Council to immediately withdraw all military forces from star systems that were illegally seized during our forced exile. We further demand reparations for the economic losses and human suffering caused by your unjustified banishment of our entire species. The alien response was swift and predictable. Ambassador Varric of the Altarian Confederation attempted to open negotiations, offering to discuss limited human expansion rights in exchange for human withdrawal from contested systems. The Zephyrian ambassador demanded that humanity surrender the captured monitoring stations and submit to new restrictions on their military development. The Corvin representative simply declared that the human raids constituted acts of war that would be met with overwhelming force. Dr. Jennifer Adams had been preparing for these negotiations for 20 years. As head of the Human Diplomatic Corps, she understood alien psychology better than any previous human ambassador. Jennifer knew that the Galactic Council operated on principles of hierarchy and demonstrated strength, not the cooperative negotiation that humans preferred. Her response to the alien demands was calculated to exploit every weakness that human intelligence had identified in galactic political structure. The Human Colonial Republic has evidence that the Galactic Council has committed similar crimes against at least 6 other species throughout galactic history, Jennifer announced during her address to the assembled alien representatives. We possess archaeological records from the Vorthon civilization, communication logs from the extinct Helkan Empire, and cultural artifacts from 4 other species that were banished and subsequently disappeared from galactic society. The revelations caused chaos in the galactic political system. Several member species that had long suspected the Council of suppressing potential rivals now had confirmation of their fears. The Tau Cetian Federation immediately announced their withdrawal from Council membership, followed within days by the Vegan Alliance and the Centauri Trade Consortium. For the first time in galactic history, the authority of the ruling council was being openly challenged by multiple civilizations simultaneously. Captain Chris Barnes led the lightning raids that followed Jennifer's diplomatic bombshell. His strike force targeted galactic communication hubs, supply depots, and administrative centers throughout the Outer Rim territories. The attacks were carefully planned to disrupt galactic infrastructure without causing massive casualties, demonstrating human military superiority while maintaining the moral high ground that Jennifer needed for her diplomatic offensive. Each successful raid proved that humanity had not only survived their exile but had emerged as a military power capable of challenging the established galactic order. The human ships appeared without warning, struck their targets with precision weapons, and vanished before defensive forces could respond. The aliens found themselves fighting an enemy that had learned from 6 decades of isolation and returned with capabilities they could barely comprehend. The psychological impact on galactic civilization was enormous. Species that had lived under Council protection for centuries suddenly realized that their protectors were not invincible. Worlds that had accepted Council authority without question began demanding explanations for the human exile and guarantees that similar punishments would not be used against them. The galactic order that had seemed permanent and stable for thousands of years was crumbling under the assault of human ships and human truth. Emperor Marcus Johnson stood before the assembled representatives of 43 different species in the Grand Chamber that had been constructed in orbit around Earth. The massive space station served as the capital of the Terran Empire, a government that had grown from humanity's desperate exile into the most powerful political force in the galaxy. Marcus had been elected by the Human Colonial Senate and confirmed by the Imperial Congress, which now included delegates from every world that had chosen to join humanity's growing alliance. The ceremony taking place was unlike anything in galactic history. Instead of conquest and forced submission, the Terran Empire had been built through voluntary association and mutual benefit. Species that had suffered under the old Galactic Council's oppressive hierarchy found themselves welcomed as equal partners in a government that valued diversity and cooperation over conformity and controlled. Admiral Patricia Hill watched from the military observer section as Marcus delivered his inaugural address. Patricia commanded the Imperial fleet, which had grown from humanity's original 200 ships into a massive armada of over 3,000 vessels representing dozens of different species and design philosophies. The fleet served not as an occupation force but as a protective umbrella, under which member worlds could prosper without fear of the kind of persecution that humanity had endured. The Zephyrian homeworld had fallen to General Andrew Clark's forces 18 months earlier, but not through the kind of devastating bombardment that had characterized galactic warfare for millennia. Andrew had surrounded the crystal cities with his ships and then broadcast a simple message to the population below. Any Zephyrian who wished to continue living under the old system could remain on their homeworld under human protection. Any who wanted to join the Terran Empire as full citizens were welcome to do so. The response had surprised even Andrew's most optimistic advisors. Within 6 months, nearly half the Zephyrian population had requested citizenship in the Terran Empire. They had watched the broadcasts from human worlds showing former enemies working together on scientific projects, building new cities, and creating art that blended different species' cultural traditions. The Zephyrians who joined the Empire brought with them crystalline engineering techniques that revolutionized human construction methods and architectural design. Dr. Michelle Turner had established her research headquarters on the former Corvan capital world, where human and alien scientists worked side by side on projects that would have been impossible under the old galactic system. Michelle's team included brilliant researchers from 12 different species, each contributing unique perspectives and capabilities to solve problems that had puzzled galactic civilization for centuries. The breakthrough that had emerged from this collaborative approach was a new form of faster-than-light travel that didn't require the massive infrastructure projects that had limited galactic expansion for thousands of years. The human-developed quantum field, technology combined with Altarian navigation systems, and vegan power generation methods created ships that could travel between star systems as easily as ancient humans had traveled between cities on Earth. Chancellor Robert Hayes presided over the first session of the Galactic Senate, where representatives from 217 worlds gathered to establish the legal framework for their new civilization. Robert had been chosen for this role because of his reputation for fairness and his ability to mediate disputes between species with vastly different cultural backgrounds and biological needs. The Senate chamber had been designed to accommodate the physical requirements of every member species. Aquatic representatives from the cetacean world sat in specially designed pools, while the silicon-based life forms from the crystalline nebula occupied resonance chambers that allowed them to communicate through harmonic vibrations. The insectoid species maintained their traditional hive-mind connections while participating as individuals in the democratic process. The first major legislation passed by the Galactic Senate was the Universal Rights Declaration, which guaranteed fundamental freedoms and protections to every sentient being, regardless of species, homeworld, or biological type. The document specifically prohibited the kind of species-based discrimination that had led to humanity's original exile and the extinction of other civilizations under the old council system. Marcus looked out from the command center of the Imperial capital, stationed at the ships arriving from across the galaxy. Trade vessels carried goods and passengers between worlds that had been isolated from each other for generations under the council's restrictive policies. Research ships explored new star systems with mixed crews working together to expand the boundaries of known space. Cultural exchange programs allowed young beings from different species to study on alien worlds and learn perspectives that enriched the entire galactic community. The transformation had not been without challenges. Some species had initially resisted human leadership, viewing the former outcasts as upstart conquerors rather than liberators. The Corvan military had fought a desperate campaign to maintain their empire's independence, launching attacks against human colonies and allied worlds. But even these conflicts had been resolved through the Empire's policy of offering integration rather than destruction to defeated enemies. The former Corvan Admiral Thys now served as a strategic advisor to the Imperial fleet, his expertise in traditional galactic military doctrine, helping human commanders understand and counter threats from the few remaining independent powers. His transformation from enemy to ally symbolized the Empire's commitment to redemption and second chances for all beings willing to embrace the new galactic order. Admiral Hill received reports from exploration fleets that had pushed beyond the boundaries of previously known space, discovering new worlds and new species that had never been contacted by the old Galactic Council. Each new discovery brought fresh opportunities for trade, research, and cultural exchange that benefited the entire Imperial Alliance. The most remarkable aspect of the Empire's expansion was that it had been achieved without destroying a single world or exterminating any species. Even the most aggressive opponents had been offered the chance to surrender and join the growing alliance as equal partners. This approach had created a stable foundation for galactic civilization that was stronger and more resilient than anything achieved through conquest and intimidation. Dr. Turner's latest research project involved Teams from 30 different species working together to develop technologies that could restore dead worlds to life and create habitable environments in previously uninhabitable star systems. The project represented everything that the Empire stood for, combining the best capabilities of multiple species to solve problems that benefited everyone. As Marcus concluded his address to the assembled representatives, he reflected on the journey that had brought humanity from desperate exile to galactic leadership. The species that had once been banished and forgotten had not only survived their ordeal, but had used it to become something better than they had been before. They had learned compassion through suffering, wisdom through isolation, and strength through adversity. The Terran Empire stretched across thousands of star systems, encompassing billions of beings who had found freedom and opportunity under humanity's leadership. Ships bearing the Empire's symbol traveled trade routes that connected formerly isolated worlds, carrying not just goods and passengers but ideas and dreams that enriched every society they touched. The galaxy that had once cast out humanity for being too successful, too aggressive, and too different now looked to those same humans for guidance in building a better future for all sentient life. The former outcasts had become the architects of a new galactic civilization based on cooperation, equality, and the revolutionary idea that diversity was strength rather than a threat to be controlled.